Well, if that hasn't really got you sorted out for this morning, this next session really will. So, we're going to look now at the importance of partnerships, which seems to be a recurring theme across this whole week. And really, this time we're going to deep dive into the system partnerships and get a real life example with a whole load of research and brand new pieces that we haven't seen before. We're going to look at how to drive large scale food fortification. And together we're going to explore this latest research, which is launching today, literally now. I've seen the sort of countdown clock on the website. And we're really going to look at how to scale access to that, to sort of fortified food that really can help reduce malnutrition against the kind of alongside the critical roles of millers. So, without further ado, I'm going to invite Will, who is the CEO of TechnoServe, who's waiting beautifully in the wings, who's going to open us into this session. And so, Will, over to you.
Thank you so much. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Will. Over to you.
Great. Proving the old adage that the CEO is often the last to find anything out. I thought this was an in-person meeting until yesterday, so I'm in a sort of awkward Zoom setup, but let me know if you're not hearing me well. My thanks to Business Fights Poverty for our opportunity to participate today, and thanks to all of you around the world joining for this very timely workshop. I say it's timely because while there's never a bad time to focus on scaling up food fortification, it is particularly urgent today. Our food systems are facing a series of overlapping crises that we're all too familiar with. The economic dislocations from COVID, the fallout from Ukraine, climate change, the global spike in food prices. And as a result, about 120 million people have slid backwards into poverty, and millions are at risk right on the brink of food insecurity. So this is even more than usual, a time in the world where we need big, bold, scalable solutions to make better, more affordable, more nutritious foods available in low-income communities around the world. And the fortification of staple foods with essential vitamins and minerals is an essential part of this answer. I won't cite a lot of statistics to the people in this virtual room because I think you're all familiar with them. But there is one that is really striking in that large scale, for every dollar invested in large scale food fortification, we see $27 back in benefits and improved health and productivity. So this is clearly one of the great investments that can be made in improving people's lives. While these benefits are increasingly well known around the world, there remains just an enormous gap in that knowledge and the actions that are needed. There's an estimated 3 billion people today in the world suffering from some form of micronutrient deficiency. So closing that rather enormous gap is going to require coordination and collaboration from many stakeholders across the ecosystem. But it is clear to us at TechnoServe that the millers need to be at the center of this change. These millers, large and small, spread across the global south, they mill maize into meal. They convert sunflower seeds into cooking oil. They turn paddy rice into polished rice. It's their dedication to providing their communities with high quality fortified foods that's ultimately the key to delivering better nutrition. And I have really been struck by so many of these agribusinesses in recent years, even as they've had to navigate terrible problems, huge spikes in commodity prices, disruptions to their supply chain, disruptions to their distribution infrastructure, and so on. They have remained really committed to serving their customers and their communities. The last miller I had the pleasure of visiting in person was in Kenya. He was primarily milling imported wheat into flour and fortifying it. And as you can imagine, the cost of his wheat, cost of his major input had skyrocketed. He was really wrestling with what to do, but he was unwilling to close down. He was unwilling to pause his business. He was unwilling to lay off his employees He was running a beautiful plant, which he proudly toured me through, and it was a very impressive facility. He was running it at 50% capacity. And certainly all of the millers in this audience will know how painful it is to do something like that. But that was his choice so that he could keep his staff on board and keep production up and be viable and active as the situation improved. It was a choice that I wasn't clear that he and other millers like him would make, but one that I was very glad that he had and was very impressed by. I would just quickly call out my old friend Paloma Fernandez, who is the CEO of the Kenya Millers Association. She has been an incredible leader in this effort for a long time, and she is really a force of nature. Any of you who don't know her, I encourage you to connect with her. A lot of the progress in Kenya is due to her determination and her leadership. I'm really glad we can come together virtually today with so many people from around the globe to talk about how we can support these millers. And in today's session, we're going to hear about some very interesting research carried out by the Harvard Kennedy School and Endeavor. And I'm really impressed with this study. It's academically rigorous, of course, but it has very practical and clear prescriptions, which is, we all know, is not always the case in academic papers. So this is a terrific piece of research. And as you've heard, it's launching today. We're also in today's session going to get a preview of a revolutionary new initiative to change the game for millers, which I won't say more about at the moment. Most importantly, I think we're going to all have a chance to put our heads together and discuss in these breakout sessions how we can help millers with the thorniest issues that they're facing now and help them navigate those to continue to promote large-scale food fortification. Just to conclude, I started my remarks citing alarming statistics, and it's true that this is a moment of real difficulty and real peril for food systems. But I also believe it's a moment in which the global community is responding with greater commitment to solving these challenges. I was at the Africa Food Systems Summit in Tanzania just 2-3 weeks ago, and these issues were really front and center as the delegates there talked about what we need to do to help improve food systems. So we at TechnoServe remain really confident in the face of these massive challenges that we can help millers to grow and to thrive so that they and their communities, they can supply their communities with quality fortified foods. It's our pleasure as TechnoServe to partner with so many of you in the meeting today, and look forward to a great session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Will, for that framing, and I'm taking right over from here. Thanks also for already introducing the research that I'm going to present. I'm Christina Teves-Gradl of Endeavor, and it's great to see many well-known faces, many millers also here, and it's in some ways a continuation of the session we had last year for this occasion, and it's great to see that we're continuing the conversation about how to scale up food fortification. Will, you also shared some data that shows how urgent it is that we are really now scaling this effort up in many countries. And you also already pointed at one of the keys to the solution, which is really making this work together with millers and working very closely with millers. So it's great to see many millers also as part of this conversation today. And we really want to make this an interactive session. So I'm not going to speak too much. I just wanted to share with you some of the key insights from the research we have undertaken together with the Harvard Kennedy School on how to scale up food fortification and how to fortify food fortification markets. And the essence of it is acting together. So what we learn is that we have to work in partnership, that we have to work in alignment in order to fix the underlying issues in the food system. I want to share with you the title of the report, so you already see that. So this is what the report looks like. And of course, we invite you to follow the link that we will share in this session and download it and really go a little bit in depth with it. And we are curious to hear your feedback. what you see on the cover is millers from different countries. And that's one of our core messages here, is that it's really time to make food fortification work from a miller perspective and to make it rewarding for millers. Because what we found in our interviews, in our case studies, is that this is not the case today. So this is kind of the core graphic of the report. It's maybe a bit overwhelming, but I'm going to take you through in these 4 minutes that I have. So in the middle, you see a very simplified value chain with millers at the center, and upstream the input providers, downstream the consumers. And around, you see some of the core dynamics that we identified in the system, many of which make it pretty difficult for millers to fortify and to comply with regulation. So the good news is that regulation exists in many places today, standards exist, but the issue is, how can millers really live up to this legislation? Because, on the one side, of course, there is a very competitive market, and millers need to save costs where possible. So as long as the regulation is not effectively enforced, many will try not to comply, and then others are at a disadvantage. Also, because if you look at the bottom right, consumers don't typically reward fortification. So many are not aware, and especially in the low-income market, consumers are very price sensitive when it comes to staples. And so millers don't really have an incentive to diversify and differentiate their products, but really to compete for price. So they don't get a reward for quality fortification in the consumer market. That's tricky. And then lastly, there's also competition in the premix market, which means that those nutrition and premix manufacturers that have been investing in building the market through training and awareness raising are now challenged by cheaper competitors whose products are also often not up to standards. So even if millers buy a product, a premix, to fortify their flour, their oil, their rice, whatever it might be, we may not in the end get the nutritional results we expect, because the premix didn't have the quality, and it's very difficult to detect that. Luckily, there's also an upward spiral. So there are, of course, leaders in the space, champion millers, who are fortifying at quality and who also get rewarded for it with national recognition, international recognition. These are very often the leaders in their markets, the biggest millers, the most recognized brands. And the ambition has to be now to take this positive spiral and take it to the broader market. So also involving medium-sized mills and even small mills into that conversation. Yeah, and that's what we want to discuss with you today. How is that possible and what's needed? In the report, we identify 6 opportunities, which we kind of cluster for our 3 breakout sessions today. And I'll just share a little bit about those sessions so you can, what you'll be discussing in the breakout themes. So opportunities 1 and 2 relate to better testing and transparency. This is critical to establish a level playing field. Because that data and that transparency will allow everybody in the market to see who's really fortifying at quality and who isn't. And there's one really inspiring initiative from Nigeria, the Micronutrient Fortification Index. It's an industry initiative. So sector leaders have initiated this index where millers are invited to share data about the quality of their flour fortification. And this is triangulated with other data and gives everybody in the space a pretty good sense of where the sector is. And also millers can respond quite quickly to drops in quality that they may not detect themselves because maybe they happen further down in the market. And this is something we'll discuss in our session 1. How might we improve the quality and nutritious value of staple food? Then, we have a second session that will look at how might we invest locally to build expertise and competitiveness, because certainly what we see is that more of the infrastructure for fortification needs to be located in countries. So the process is efficient and cost effective. And one important aspect of that is capacity building institutions. So that's number 3 on that slide. If we can have capacity building institutions in countries, in regions, we're also building expertise on the ground that is available to millers in the shape and form that they're looking for. And we're building expertise over time. One great example that we found, and that is also in the session number 2, is the African Milling Academy. It's an initiative by Bühler, an equipment manufacturer from Switzerland, which has set up the African Milling School in Kenya a couple of years ago, and it's already become a hub for knowledge and expertise in the region. So we invite you to join that session around investing locally, and there may be other things that we need to invest in, such as labs and other infrastructure. And then the third session will look into how we might reach the low-income population, which is often most at risk for malnutrition and micronutrient deficiencies. And we've got 2 solutions here on our map that relate to that. One is to also reach out to small mills that have been largely left out of the picture for now because they're difficult to reach. And we have Sanku in this call, a social enterprise that has come up with a great setup to reach also small mills efficiently, and in that way enable larger players, like, for example, premix manufacturer Mühlenchemie, to cater to that target market via this intermediary. Part of this conversation can also be how we create consumer-centric solutions that are relevant for the low-income market, like porridges, also interesting examples there. And then our opportunity number 6 is shared advocacy. So speaking with one voice, working together to establish the ecosystem that is needed. And that's really what the session is about today. I think continuing this conversation between public and private sector, and making sure both sides work hand in hand and support one another to establish a market that works for food fortification, that works for millers, and in the end creates nutritious food for consumers and better health in countries. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you very much there, Christina. And am I right in saying we're handing over to Paloma now?
Right. Thank you, Katie.
Brilliant. So Paloma, if you are there, we would love to hear from you at this point.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Will. I'm very humbled at your words. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Paloma Fernandez, and I'm the CEO of the Cereal Millers Association of Kenya. Today, I'll be talking about the Millers for Nutrition initiative and its approach to leveling the playing field. As millers, I think it's important to note that, we fully endorse the relevance of food fortification. We keep saying that we're partners in the global malnutrition problem, and we too want to make a difference. So we recognize our role and, we accept our responsibility to improve the nutritional status of our consumers. So in Kenya, sadly, 1 in 3 children under 5 suffer from stunting. Almost 10% of our children under 5 suffer from vitamin A deficiency. Sadly, we kind of ignore the fact that 4 out of every 10 Kenyan women suffer from iron deficiency anemia. And Kenya loses a whopping 374 billion shillings annually due to malnutrition. So despite our endorsement and our resolutions to unleash the power of large-scale food fortification, we as millers face many challenges. And I think Will said and talked about, how globally the inflation and, there have been economic disruptions resulting from the pandemic. There's been conflicts in Ukraine and, of course, climate change. And all these have led to the unaffordability of almost all basic commodities. In Kenya, the malnutrition problem has been made worse by the high fuel costs that we have. The production costs have really gone up. We've got a lot of increased taxation. And all of this has led to specific problems that we've had to deal with. The purchasing power now has reduced, and people are struggling to buy basic commodities. And I think, as Christina said, this price-sensitive demand means that any increase in price is detrimental to consumer preference. Another challenge we face is the lack of incentive and a lack of recognition to fortify. For us, sometimes fortification can be seen as a weak business case. Millers don't really see the need to add cost to an already expensive production line, as they see no apparent increase in sales and no recognition of compliance of their companies. Another major challenge we face is imbalanced regulations, and these lead to uneven playing fields. Uneven playing fields in terms of over-regulation for compliant and more visible millers is expensive. And what it tends to do, it pushes the market share to those non-compliant players who operate under the regulatory radar. Fortunately, all is not lost. And despite these setbacks, we have made great progress in Kenya over the past few years, which we must celebrate. Our association, whose members self-regulate, now reach 39 million consumers with our fortified and nutritious flour. We have achieved increased compliance in Kenya by building our capacity with the strong support of TechnoServe. We have increased our maize flour compliance rates from about 28% in 2018 to 49% currently. Our wheat flour compliance has gone up almost from 51% in 2018 to 70% currently. We're also very excited about the new Kenya Millers Fortification Index, the KMFI, that our members are currently piloting. And we hear this has been hugely successful in Nigeria, and so we can't wait to see the results here. The KMFI will help us to demonstrate our commitment to fortification. It will recognize brands. It will enhance data sharing. This is a major problem that we've had. It will help us to mitigate our risks. And most importantly, it will help us to complement regulatory efforts. So we will work in partnership with our regulators to ensure quality of our fortification. So you might ask, how actually do we create these level playing fields with the KMFI? And I think it's good to note that level playing field rules are designed to ensure that industries making the same products can compete on a fair basis because they operate to similar rules that can affect their costs. So while we agree that regulations and standards are the basis of creating level playing fields, it is incumbent upon the industry to take ownership and leadership of various initiatives such as the KMFI and Millers for Nutrition that actually have the structures to create the level playing fields we so desire as private sector, rather than wait for governments to provide us with those structures and rules. The pillars of these initiatives include recognition, rewards, and support for participating millers. This is new. This is fantastic for the millers. This will lead to a more visible and sustainable fortification environment. And we think, due to this visibility, non-compliant millers will either have to join or improve their processes to attain this visibility and remain competitive. And this will help us create more level playing fields. And as millers, we require a level playing field that allows us to sustain our fortification efforts while remaining competitive in the industry. So I think I'll end by saying we remain committed to providing safe and nutritious food to our consumers. Thank you.
Just double checking with Christina. Have we got anything else we need to do before we go into our breakouts, Christina?
No, we can start the breakout rooms.
Amazing. So just to give everybody a little bit of a heads up, as you will have seen in the chat already, I asked you, I'm sorry, you keep seeing my teacup. I don't like seeing my teacup. You will have seen in the chat, so when Christina was going through what those breakouts are, I asked you just to rename yourselves if you could, with your numbers. If you've just put your number in the chat, I'm afraid I haven't probably picked that up. So if you want to just change your name, and you can just go into, find your name in the participant list, go to the dots, it says more, and there's a bit of a drop down. And you can find room 1, you can find room 2, and you can also find something that says main room, so MN and RM. And those three pieces correspond to 3 different questions. So number 1, put a number 1 in front of you. If you want to join the room that says, how might we improve the quality and nutritious value of staple food. Hopefully most of you are meant to be in a room that's already there, but if I've missed anybody, no worries. If you want to stay in the main room, so put MNRM in front of your name. This is for the session where we're going to explore how might we invest locally to build expertise and competitiveness. And the final one is put a number 2 in front of your name if you want to join the session exploring how might we reach low income populations. And what we're going to do is we're going to break out into those groups. You've got me in one of the rooms. I'm in the main room. You've got my colleague Annabelle in another of the rooms and Natasha in the other, along with a bunch of experts who will be able to call on and hear from as we go through the conversation. And we've got some that will explore those questions a bit more. So do get those numbers in front of your names if you want to change them. I'll just quickly whiz through my list here, just in case there's anybody who's amended. And then what I'll do is I'll open those rooms. At that point, that's an opportunity for you to really do turn on your cameras. We would love to see you if you want to be there and come and join us. We definitely want to hear from you. So that's your opportunity to come and join. Oh, lots of people wanting to join room number 2. Loads of pieces. A reminder, there's not a room number 3. That room number 3 is your main room. So loads of people changing their numbers right now in front of me in real time. This is the joy of doing this internationally around the world. And if you haven't already, do jump into the chat. Tell us where you're joining from. Tell us who you are and what brings you to these sessions. So I think we're about ready to start. If you find yourself in the wrong room, just leave the room, come back to the main place, which is where I will be hanging out, and we will go from there. Right, I think we're ready to go. Here we go, guys. Are you ready? Dun, 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 drum roll. Here we go. If you see a little pop-up coming up on your screen, hit that pop-up. If you don't see the pop-up, don't worry. That means you're staying here and hanging out with me. We're the cool kids anyway. So hopefully that's all coming your way right now. So hopefully you'll be seeing where you're heading off to. Without further ado, in our breakout room. So hello, I am Katie. Lovely to hear from you and great to have you here. And Christina, we've also got you as well. So we're the cool kids at the moment. So Christina, I wanted to hand over to you. Share a little bit about why this question is really important, how people in this group can potentially really help you. And I will be quiet. I'm going to turn my camera off for just 2 minutes and just double check everybody's in the right rooms. So Christina, over to you. Why is this question really important to you?
Thank you, Katie, and it's great to see so many here. So what we want to discuss in this session is how can we invest locally to build expertise and competitiveness. So it's really about investing in local markets. And I think what we've seen as a dynamic in so far in food fortification is that a lot of the infrastructure of doing this is still owned by large companies from the north, or is somehow located in rich countries. And for example, test samples sometimes have to be sent from Ethiopia to the United States just to get a lab result because there's not a local lab. And also I mentioned the example of capacity building. A lot of the capacity building has been done, and that's great, by large companies who are providing the nutrients and the premix. The downside of this, if you look at it from a